My heart's pounding in my chest like a jackrabbit on Red Bull as I watch the president's face on the screen. Alexander Petrov, a man I've heard of but never met. The weight of his words carries a gravity that makes my gut twist into knots. I'm stuck in this cramped, dimly lit conference room, the only sound the hum of the projector and the scratch of pens on notepads. The president's voice is like a steel blade, cutting through the chatter of the officials around me. His words are laced with an air of urgency, as if the fate of Magadan itself hangs in the balance. I glance around the room, taking in the mixture of excitement and trepidation on the officials' faces. Some are scribbling notes, while others stare intently at the screen, their eyes locked onto the president's. My mind's racing, trying to keep up with the flow of information. I've been a deputy for nigh on 15 years, and I've seen my fair share of corruption. But this feels different. The president's words are dripping with sincerity, but I've got a nagging feeling that something's off. A mole, they say. Someone on the inside, manipulating the plan for their own gain. The thought sends a shiver down my spine. I glance at the clock on the wall, a cold, unforgiving face that seems to mock me with its precision. Time's running out, and I'm stuck in this room, powerless to do anything but watch. My eyes flick back to the screen, my gaze drawn to the president's face like a magnet. His eyes seem to bore into mine, as if searching for something. A spark of recognition, maybe? A hint of suspicion? But all I see is a man who's genuinely committed to the betterment of Magadan. Or is he? I sat at the conference table, eyes locked on the screens flashing before us. The meeting was supposed to be a routine briefing on counterterrorism strategies, but something in the air felt off. The officials around me were a mix of seasoned veterans and newcomers, each with their own agenda. I'd seen it before, the posturing, the one-upmanship. But this time, it felt different. The tension was palpable, a living thing that pulsed through the room like a vein throbbing with adrenaline. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my palms slick with sweat. I glanced around the table, searching for any sign of what was to come. The president, a man I'd met before, seemed oblivious to the growing unease. He droned on about troop deployments and funding allocations, but I knew he was just going through the motions. That's when it happened. The screens flickered, and a message appeared on every single one. My gut dropped like a stone as I read the words, Project Erebus compromised. I felt a shiver run down my spine, my mind racing with the implications. What did this mean? Was it a threat, a warning? I glanced at the president, expecting him to spring into action, but he just waved it off as a glitch. But Sergei, the city's mayor, was a different story. He paled, his eyes darting wildly around the room. I'd seen that look before, the look of a man who'd just seen the floor drop out from under him. He leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. What does it mean? He demanded. The room fell silent, the only sound the hum of the screens and the steady beat of my own heart. I knew then that this was just the beginning, that whatever Project Erebus was, it was about to blow wide open. My boots hit the pavement hard, the crunch of gravel beneath my feet a stark contrast to the cold sweat beading on my brow. I'd been working on the mole case for weeks, but with Anastasia's arrival, the stakes just got a whole lot higher. I'd heard rumors about her, a sharp, no-nonsense investigator with a reputation for getting results. But nothing could have prepared me for the fire in her eyes when she stepped off that plane. She hit the ground running, diving headfirst into questioning the officials. I watched from the sidelines, my gut twisting with unease as she zeroed in on the mayor. He's a smooth talker, always has been, but there's a hint of desperation in his eyes that tells me he's hiding something. Anastasia's got a way of getting to people, of sniffing out the lies. I've seen it before, and it's a beautiful, brutal thing to watch. But I'm not the only one paying attention. The president's got his eyes on us too, and I can feel the weight of his gaze like a physical presence. He's standing at the podium, a smile plastered on his face as he reveals the master plan. Thousands of residents displaced, their homes torn down to make way for a new business district. It's a cold, calculated move, one that's going to leave a trail of destruction in its wake. I feel a growl rising up in my throat as I listen to the president's words. This isn't just about economics or development. It's about power and control and the willingness to do whatever it takes to get it. My eyes lock onto Anastasia, and I know we're thinking the same thing. We've got to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it takes. The stakes just got a whole lot higher, and I'm not sure if we're ready for what's coming. I remember the night like it was etched into my skin. The rain pounded against the streets, casting a relentless rhythm that seemed to match the pounding in my chest. I was on high alert, every fiber of my being screaming for us to be ready. Anastasia, our top investigator, had been digging deep into the corporation, following a trail that seemed to lead to the very top. As I watched her type away on the computer, the fluorescent lights above casting an eerie glow on her determined face, I felt the weight of the situation settle on my shoulders. We were getting close. I could feel it. The breadcrumbs Anastasia had uncovered led to a high-ranking government official, someone I'd worked with before, a reminder that even the good guys can be compromised. My gut told me this was the break we needed, but I knew better than to get ahead of myself. The president's voice echoed in my ear, his agitation palpable through the comms device on my tactical vest. "How much longer, Deputy? We can't afford to wait." I bit back a reply, focusing on the data streaming across Anastasia's screen. She was piecing together a web of connections: the corporation, the city's mayor, and now a member of the president's own cabinet. My mind reeled with the implications. We were skirting the edge of a nightmare, one that threatened to consume us all. As I scanned the room, my eyes locked onto Anastasia's. She was the calm in the storm, her intensity fueled by a fire that drove her to uncover the truth. I knew that look. It was the same one I'd seen when she'd first joined the force, a burning passion that refused to be extinguished. I nodded to her, my voice barely above a whisper. "Keep digging, Anastasia. I think we're closer than you think." The president's voice cut through the tension, his words a stark reminder that time was running out. My heart still racing, like it's trying to get out of my chest. That's how it feels when you're staring into the face of pure evil. The city's still reeling from the news. Sergei, the mayor, the man I thought I could trust, was the mole all along, working with the corporation to dismantle our efforts, to protect their interests, to line their pockets with blood money. It's like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless. I remember the president's face, etched with anguish and betrayal. He looked like he'd been punched in the gut, his eyes sunken, his jaw clenched. How could he? He kept repeating, like he couldn't wrap his head around it. I remember thinking, how could anyone? But Anastasia, she was different. Her eyes were blazing with determination, a fire that seemed to fuel her every move. She was already planning her next step, already thinking about how to bring Sergei to justice. I watched as she walked out of the room, her heels clicking on the marble floor, her back straight, her shoulders squared. She was a woman on a mission, with no intention of backing down. I wanted to be with her, to support her, but I knew I had to stay behind, to process this information, to try to make sense of it all. As I looked around the room, I saw the other deputies, their faces somber, their eyes filled with a mix of shock and disgust. We'd been played, manipulated, used. And now, we had to pick up the pieces and move forward, to figure out how to take down Sergei and the corporation. It was a daunting task, but with Anastasia leading the charge, I knew we had a chance. We had to take down the mole, no matter what it took. My boots echoed off the cold metal walls as I stepped into the dimly lit warehouse. The air was thick with the scent of decay and rot. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest like a jackhammer. I'd been tracking Sergei for hours, following the trail of bodies and broken lives he left in his wake. Anastasia stood beside me, her eyes locked on the man standing at the far end of the warehouse. Sergei. I could see the cold calculation in his eyes, the smug confidence that he'd outsmarted us all. But I knew better. I'd seen the bodies. I'd talked to the victims. I knew the truth. "You're a long way from home, Sergei," Anastasia said, her voice steady. He sneered, his lip curling up in a snarl. "You'll never take me alive," he spat. I moved forward, my hand resting on the grip of my gun. This was it. The final showdown. I could feel the weight of the world bearing down on me, the knowledge that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Sergei's eyes flicked to the side, and for a moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of fear. But it was too late. Anastasia had already moved, her hand closing around Sergei's wrist like a vice. I watched in slow motion as she twisted his arm behind his back, her eyes never leaving his face. The sound of the president's voice echoed off the walls as he burst into the warehouse, flanked by his Secret Service agents. "It's over," he said, his voice firm. Sergei struggled against Anastasia's grip, but she held firm. "You'll never stop it," he snarled, his eyes flashing with anger. I felt a chill run down my spine as Anastasia pulled Sergei's phone from his pocket. The screen flickered to life, displaying a single message. "Project Erebus is just the beginning." My mind went blank. What did it mean? What was coming next? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, the air knocked out of me. Anastasia's eyes met mine, a look of grim determination etched on her face. This wasn't over.